Welcome to everyone. I'm Jean Marie Barker. I am a music publisher, and my company is Counterpoint Music Library Services, and I am Larysa Kuzmenko's publisher. So thank you for attending. I just wanted to give a brief introduction to her and the Voice of Hope, which you're going to hear later live. I had known Larysa through her husband, Gary Kulesza, who I have published his works for many years. And I knew that he had a composer wife, and I knew her name was Larysa, and I knew that she was Ukrainian, but other than that, I didn't know anything about her. Until he said, would you publish this piece, Golden Harvest? I heard the premiere, I loved it. We signed on, and we did a few more things, and then earlier this year, she says, I have this piece, Voice of Hope. Will you listen to it? I said, of course. And so I listened to it, and I was just blown away. And I said, okay, I have to do something with this. And so I asked her to create a piano solo version, and this will be the premiere of this that you're going to hear later. And so you're going to enjoy what she's about to say, and I won't take any more time, but thank you, Larysa.
Oh, thank you, Jean Marie. Oh. Getting old, don't know which glasses to put on. Done that before, 2 glasses at the same time. So I guess some of you might know who I am. I'm a Toronto-based composer and pianist of Ukrainian heritage. I started playing piano when I was 4 years old, and I started composing music when I was 7 years old. It all started with a trip to Niagara Falls, actually. My father took me to Niagara Falls, and he asked me to stand where the stone wall is, and right where the falls were falling, and it terrified me. So I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I'm really scared. I'll go home and I'll write a piece of music. Maybe that might help me. So my first opus was The Falls in C minor, and I found it comforting and exciting to be able to express my emotions and personal experiences through my music. I currently teach at the University of Toronto. I taught at the Royal Conservatory of Music, the Glenn Gould School, the Young Artists Program for a number of years. My music is published and recorded and is performed all over the world by many outstanding musicians and orchestras. I used to perform piano professionally. I was also an opera accompanist and coach for a number of years. I made the final decision to teach and write music because I couldn't do everything all at once. Being an opera accompanist, that was rough because we would do rehearsals like 13 hours a day, so that almost killed me doing that. So that was it. The last thing that I did was La Boheme, and I was so tired that the tenor picked me up. I was like a crab, like this. I was so exhausted. So no more opera, but I love voice, I must say. The last performance that I performed was Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. And my favorite composer when I was growing up was Tchaikovsky and of course, Rachmaninoff. And I thought to myself, well, how does somebody write music like that for a full orchestra? That must be a magical thing to do. So here I wrote 3 piano concertos, and I wrote a double concerto for piano and violin that will be recorded actually in September. And my first piano concerto, I'm happy to say, was nominated for a Juno Award. And I've composed a lot of choral music and vocal pieces. A lot of my choral music is for children's voices. There's one I wrote called Behold the Night, based on Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. It was premiered with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. They actually commissioned it. And Christopher Plummer was on the same show, and after the concert, we all went out for dinner, and he said, Shakespeare would be very proud of your setting of Midsummer Night's Dream. So that was nice. And there's a picture of me and Christopher Plummer in my website if you want to check it out. I grew up listening to a lot of Ukrainian folk music. Just to mention a few of my works that are based on this narrative, Voice of Hope, which you'll hear today, which is, it's originally written for soprano and string orchestra. It's based on the 1932-33 genocide famine that occurred in Ukraine. So there are actually 3 versions of this, one with string orchestra. I did another one for the Griffin Trio, so piano trio, and today you'll hear the piano version of it. My oratorio, Golden Harvest, was written for full orchestra, SATB soprano, and baritone. It chronicles the journey of one Ukrainian family, symbolic of all Ukraine pioneers, who made the difficult decision to leave behind all that was familiar and dear to them in order to build a better life in Canada. In memoriam to the victims of Chernobyl, it's piano work, solo piano work. I think I have it here. Yes, but this is published by Planger. And if I were to describe it, it basically reflects the tragedy of the world's worst nuclear accident. The opening theme is very dark and ominous. It sets the mood for the upcoming tragic event. I quote a very sad Ukrainian folk tune that describes a person walking in a graveyard to visit a loved one. That tune is further developed and morphed. I also quote a sacred chant from the Ukrainian Orthodox Church asking God for forgiveness. So I'm going to play that for you. We're recording with Kristina Petrovska-Kwiliko, who performed it. Thank you. Last year, my friend, the late Boris Brodie, commissioned me to write a work for Orchestre Classique de Montréal. He wanted me to incorporate some Ukrainian folk-like elements in this piece. The work is called Kurilek's Gallery. I don't know if you're familiar with the artist. It's a work for string orchestra inspired by the famous Ukrainian-Canadian artist William Kurilek. The suite is a musical interpretation of 6 selected paintings. Just telling you about my influence of, writing music, including Ukrainian narratives. So we'll move on from there to something a little bit lighter. I am an animal lover. I have 3 cats, Coco, Trixie, and Tara. I am a big supporter of a number of animal charities. My first animal-inspired piece was for solo piano called Mysterious Summer's Night. This piece was originally published for 15 years in the RCM Celebration series, the grade 8 level. After that, Plangere took over the publication, and now it's published again with the RCM, so they got permission from Plangere to publish it once again for, I guess, another 5 years. So the inspiration came to me one hot summer's night. My husband and I would take our cats for a walk to the park just down our street. It was a beautiful hot summer's night. I'm telling you the secret why it's called Mysterious Summer's Night. The moon was shining bright. As we were enjoying our walk in the park with our cats, they got spooked. This creature was actually lurking in the bush and was staring at us. Little did we know that we had coyotes and foxes in the park at that time. So we all got scared. All the cats, me and my husband, we ran out of the park and we got home safely. The music takes on that kind of structure of going to the park and coming back home again. And it's influenced by Gershwin's Summertime. So I'm going to play it for you. I can see where I'm going with my reading glasses. By the way, like I said, I haven't played in 30 years. So I apologize for wrong notes. Unless if you don't know the piece, it's okay. Really good exercise. Going back and forth here. Okay. Brodie's Adventures. This is Brodie. Our friends and neighbors, Donna, Michael, and their daughter Christina Schwante's dog Brodie, brought us so much joy during these past 14 years. Brodie was such a loving, sweet, happy, and friendly dog who would stop by our house and greet us during his daily walks to the park. He also enjoyed the doggy treats that we placed for him in a special mailbox. We were saddened to hear that he was no longer with us. We all miss Brodie very much. His many walking adventures inspired me to write the solo piano piece in his memory. So Brodie's Adventures is divided into 2 sections. The first part is fast and the second one is slow. The music begins with a whimsical melody in the left hand, accompanied by a rippling figure in the right hand, suggesting the bubbling Humber River, where Brodie spent a lot of time during one of his many adventures. That's where this picture was taken. The melody is then passed on to the right hand in parallel motion with the left hand. A contrasting secondary theme is quietly introduced in the left hand and then is answered loudly in the right hand. As the tempo slows down, a serene melody emerges. The harmonies are lush, depicting nature's beauty and reflecting Brodie's adventures in Lambton Park. I was told that he would sit on a log near the river and watch the shore birds, the ducks and the swallows. The music ends with a coda that is based on the second theme. Here the music is quiet and gentle, capturing the essence of Brodie's kind-hearted nature. And I just want to add a further note here that you'll see in the published score. Written by Brodie's owner, and she writes, Brodie calmed down a lot and his adult years became very sedate. He loved other dogs but didn't necessarily want to play with them because they would pull his long hair, so he would herd them by circling around a group of playing puppies. His 2 morning walk companions did not like other dogs very much and would often bark aggressively, so when there was a new dog to meet, and there were a lot during the pandemic, Brodie was the only one who was allowed to go up and to meet and greet. We called him the Goodwill Ambassador, and his dog walkers called him the Prime Minister because he always acted so dignified. He was very good with cats. I remember he met my cat, but he didn't trust them. The last couple of months of his life, we spent a lot of time near Humber River, so that's that photo here, and Lambton Woods Park, where I mentioned that he's sitting on a log and watching all the birds. Okay, so the premiere of Brodie's Adventures. It's about a grade 9 level. My husband thinks it's a lot harder, so we'll see. Thank you. Good old Brodie. Okay. The final piece that I'm going to talk about is A Voice of Hope. And I think I have. Isn't that beautiful? I love that picture. So, Voice of Hope is for soprano and as I said, string orchestra, but we'll hear the version today for piano and voice. The famine genocide occurred as a result of direct Soviet policy to crush the national conscious Ukrainian people, especially peasants and landowners, who most fervently resisted collectivization and supported the independence of Ukraine. This terror claimed the lives of between 7 to 10 million people. The Soviet regime introduced unrealistically large quotas on grain and other agricultural products, stripping the peasants of their food supply. In August 1932, the regime authorized the confiscation of grain from peasant households, and a month later enacted a law that authorized the death penalty of the leniency of 10 years exile for the theft of social property, grain, and foodstuffs. The borders of Ukraine were officially sealed to prevent any migration or relief efforts. This made it difficult for the Western press to report on this catastrophe. At the same time, the Soviet regime dumped 1.7 million tons of grain on Western markets. This work that I composed is dedicated to my mother's family, her great-grandmother, Katerina Kozar, her grandmother, Tatiana Breha, grandfather Gregory, and their children, Peter, Philip, and Anastasia, who died in the Holodomor. My mother was orphaned at the age of 9, and she survived because she ate bugs and leaves or whatever she could get her hands on, you know. It was amazing that she could do that. What was really sad was when the men came to bury her family, they put her mother in a grave, and they were going to put dirt over her face, and my mom said, why don't you take the front door off and just put the door on her so the dirt won't go directly on her face. So it's really sad, these things that are happening. Well, things are happening now in Ukraine, so it's unbelievable. I'm almost glad my parents are not alive to see this happening once again. It was interesting writing this piece. It's almost like it wrote itself. It's very unusual. It's almost magical. I remember writing it in my studio in the basement. I had this pillow with a Ukrainian church, a photo of a Ukrainian church on it, and something struck me. I don't know, I could easily just go to my score and just simply write this piece. It just wrote itself. So that never happens. It takes me a long time to write a piece of music. Like a piano concerto would take me like a year to write, but this came along pretty quickly. So the work opens with a dark and ominous theme presented by the strings. If these are my notes. If you hear it with the string orchestra in a very high register. The music creates an atmosphere of despair and sorrow when a child sees a little bird at her window begging for food. She asks the bird to tell the world that we are dying from starvation. The music suddenly speeds up and becomes rhythmic and intense, depicting Stalin's police gathering up all the food from the villagers and leaving families to die from hunger. The opening theme reappears in the last verse, but with a stronger sense of helplessness, as many have died. As the music intensifies, it reaches a dramatic climax with both soprano and full orchestra or piano here on the words, but we as a people will not give up. We have not died, we are still alive. And I'll quickly read the poem, and then we'll have a performance of it. I think I have some time. This was actually written by a 16-year-old who, this poem was written by a 16-year-old who survived the famine. Mother, listen, is someone knocking at the window? Poor exhausted little bird, how have you survived in this misery and strife? Who will feed you? We haven't a crumb of bread or a grain. We're cold and hungry, woe is us. Fly, fly away across the sea. Tell everyone how we are suffering, how we are hungering. How many of us now have died? Why are we dying of hunger? Villagers are gathering grain in the fields, and Stalin has issued strict orders, gather the whole crop in Ukraine. Gendarmes are going from house to house, scraping everything out, every crumb of bread on the table, every cabbage. Children are weeping, mothers are sobbing, praying for a crust of bread. But no, the cruel Stalinist regime has set itself the goal of bringing people to their knees, of making them into beggars and slaves. Hunger is stalking the land. Hunger is stalking in my Ukraine. Everyone is dying, the old, the women, the children. The village has fallen silent. The chatter of children can't be heard. The paths from house to house have grown over with weeds. Everything is silent. Oh, barbarous savage, your regime is cruel, but we haven't died. We're still alive. And I'm going to introduce Natalya and Michel to come and perform the piece for us.
Okay, and the mic is not on.
Yes, the mic is, well, it's being recorded.
Okay,
So therefore,
good to know.
back there is good.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly while we're settling, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Larysa for this piece. It's very cathartic, especially right now. My mom, who is a refugee right now in Estonia in a little village today, she messaged me to say, say that your grandma was in Holomodor as well. So it's an important piece of music for us.
Any questions? We're okay? Well, after that, I mean, what, yeah, amazing performance. Excellent. Thank you, Natalya and Michel. Lovely. It was a real pleasure being here today. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
thank you to Larysa and to Natalya and Michel. Thank you for sharing your stories and your beautiful music. What a wonderful, engaging
pleasure.
workshop. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I just wanted to thank all of you for coming. And again, just to let you know, there is another workshop coming up in this room at 4 o'clock. Dina Namer's workshop on Clara Schumann. As well, in the Art and Media Gallery, Nazreen Jordana is doing a workshop on the creative use of music technology. So, still more things to come, but thank you again.
My pleasure.
Just before you go, I was going to mention that Larysa will be back at my booth, the Counterpoint Music Library Services, and The Voice of Hope and Brodie's Adventures is available. And Long and McQuaid, who has generously co-sponsored this with me, they have her In Memoriam of Chernobyl, and they have a couple other pieces of hers which are available, and she will be happy to sign any scores, so you could have an autographed score. So I welcome you to do that. Thank you.